Hey guys, welcome back to Around the Campfire with AmeriCamp, the ultimate summer camp podcast. My name is Zara.
My name is Caitlin.
And we're back for another podcast.
Yeah, we are.
Our favourite thing to do at the moment, apparently.
Yes.
Today, we thought we would talk about something that we have kind of mentioned in our previous podcast when we've been talking about our camp experiences, but never really in much detail, I guess. Something that we get asked questions about quite a lot here at AmeriCamp, and that is working at Jewish summer camps. Obviously, here at AmeriCamp, we have tons and tons of different summer camps that we send our applicants to summer after summer. Some of those service underprivileged communities. Some of them are the more traditional private co-ed camps. Some of them are special needs camps. We have Girl Scout camps, a whole host of different camps.
Yes.
But today we're focusing on our Jewish summer camps. So just for like a bit of background, I guess, my camp, Camp Tawanda, up in Pennsylvania, was technically a Jewish camp, I guess. It was Jewish owned and observed some of the Jewish traditions, but it wasn't, promoted as a religious camp, like this is a religious camp and you will be coming here to do this.
Yeah.
It was promoted as a traditional co-ed private camp, as I think quite a lot of camps are, but we just had some little traditions that we'd kind of do on certain days of the week.
Yeah.
Caitlin, what about yourself?
Yeah, so this summer I did attend a Jewish camp. Rather than it being just sort of like a traditional camp, it was an all-girls Jewish camp, and Judaism was a huge part of the core of the camp, and it was sort of involved in all the activities, and like we had services and stuff like that, which we can get into a little bit more, but it was a religious camp.
You're spoken to when you're interviewing with the camps how they might observe particular traditions. For example, with my camp, prior to meal times, we would go into the dinner hall and we would stand behind our chairs. We wouldn't sit down straight away, and we would say a prayer before our food, and we would say it once in Hebrew and then again in English. And then, as you said, we had services as well on Friday nights. And whilst we, did say some prayers in Hebrew, we cut the challah, things like that. It was also more so used as a time of reflection, and they very much put a premise at camp on the fact that you don't have to be Jewish to really get involved in this kind of activity. You can use it no matter what religion you are, whether you are religious or not. You can use it as a time to reflect on your week and just kind of be grateful for the week that you just had. And I think, they definitely focus more so on that than the kind of Judaism aspect of it.
Yeah.
Whereas I know obviously for you that might have been a little bit different.
Yeah, so sort of just to go off what Zara said, like a lot of the stuff that you mentioned we did do at our camp, but like we would pray before every meal and after every meal. We would have Friday night services and Saturday morning services, like in the Pine Grove, which is like an outside cute little area with benches and stuff. It was really cute. And the services sort of just was a mixture of like prayers, but then also songs that you could like dance to and sing along to and things like that. Like it was just a really nice time to spend time with your bunk and your campers and co-counselors and stuff, and it was just like a really nice experience. And also all the food at the camp was kosher as well, so it was like kosher meats and stuff, but it was also like it was either a meat meal or a dairy meal. There was no mixing. At all.
Okay.
Which I never had any experience to beforehand. I didn't really even know what kosher was. Like I sort of knew, but I wasn't as knowledgeable as I am now. So that was really interesting, and something that I don't think I would have had the experience of having not going to a Jewish summer camp as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you said that word experience, and I think both of us really hadn't kind of had any experience with like Jewish traditions before. Even, like the prayers in Hebrew, I'd never known a Hebrew word, I guess, prior to going to camp. So it was definitely a new experience for sure, I think for both of us, I can say. And it wasn't kind of nerve-wracking in that way of like, oh, I don't know anything about this, I'm not going to be able to do it, because, they kind of just say, like with the prayer that we would do before our meals, they'd say, if you know it, join in. If you don't, just stand quietly and, be respectful. Yeah. And I think that was kind of one of the main premises that has always been with my camp of, you don't have to be Jewish, and if you're not, just respect that some of us are, kind of thing. Yeah. But it wasn't sort of ever pushed onto counsellors that we observe particular traditions, so you need to do the same now, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think that's a thought and like a worry that a lot of people have before going to like a slightly more religious camp, or even just because a lot of traditional camps do have a lot of Jewish campers anyway. So people do worry about things like that, but it's like once you get there, no one is judging you for not being Jewish. Like, it's not really even brought up. Like, you'll never feel like an outsider, especially in my experience. I've been to 2 different Jewish camps, and it was never like you were never looked down upon or like forced to do anything that you weren't comfortable with, which I think is great. And I think a lot of people do worry about that before, you know, going to one of those camps.
With that, of some people kind of worry about it and aren't too sure what to expect. Did you have any kind of prior expectations going into it, and how did it, I guess, really compare when you got there? And now that you've had a whole summer there, what do you kind of think about that?
I don't think I had too many expectations. I just didn't know a lot of stuff. So like, I knew that there would be services at the camp, but I didn't know what that entailed, like at all. I didn't know, because at my first camp, it was a Jewish camp, but it was slightly different. I feel like it wasn't as religious. So like our Friday services at my first camp were completely different to the services at Camp Pembroke, where I went this summer. So I sort of had an idea roughly, but I just didn't know a lot of things, like even I said before with like the kosher food and stuff like that. So going into it, it was like, this is really interesting, and like just taking in all the information when it was there. But there was nothing that I was particularly expecting to happen, if that makes sense. What about you?
I mean, same as you, to be fair. I feel like having now been there, it wasn't, you know, like a big part of the camp experience, but things to do with it were. So the prayer that we would say before the meal, like, I now know that back to front. You know, on Friday we would all wear our white t-shirts because we'd have the services that evening, and that was just like a nice little thing that we'd all go and do down at the amphitheatre. And it, like, as I keep saying, that kind of reflection activity. I don't know, I don't think I had any expectations kind of going into it. I think initially, because I'm not a religious person, so I think when I was first initially told that it was a Jewish observing camp, that I didn't really have any expectations. I just didn't really know what that meant. And I think initially potentially it was a little bit daunting, in a sense that, and it would have been the same with any kind of religion, I would have said, I don't really know anything about that. I don't know how I should handle that. But in that sense, then I kind of took it how I took the majority of things when I first was sort of choosing camps and then first went to camp, and I just took it all as a learning experience, in the sense that we've all pretty much done religious education at school, so everybody knows a bit about most of the religions, but I didn't really have a clue what that meant in, you know, a day-to-day sense. So I kind of just took it all as okay, this is going to be new, this is going to be interesting. Absolutely. And then week on week I kind of learned a few more things, and now I have a load of best friends from all over the world that are Jewish, which I hadn't had before, and I find that really interesting, being able to learn about people's, you know, other views, and in the same sense that when you're at camp you get to learn about different cultural backgrounds and meet people from all these different walks of life, whether that is a different area of the country or a different, you know, continent. You can also meet all these people from completely different religious backgrounds. There was a lot of, you know, Christians at my camp that would say, I, you know, sit there in services and I'll think about my Christianity. And they really would say that to us, you know, if you don't, if you're not Jewish, that's fine. If you're of another religion, when we're in these services, you can kind of take it in that way if you would like. I didn't really have many expectations. I just kind of thought, this will be something new, as most things at camp were. It was an interesting one for sure, but one that I enjoyed 100%. And I don't think I would change it now, because that's just what camp is to me. Like, we had our services, and it was also one of the times where we all came together as a camp, and it was very much, it was kind of like family night in a way. Like, if you grew up having like games night on a weekend with your family, and everyone would be there, and everyone would like go around to like your grand's house or whatever it was. You know, that Friday night was family night to me, and it was where we all were very respectful, were happy to reflect on the week, and kind of went out of it having had that peaceful time.
Yeah.
Because you don't get a lot of that at camp.
Yeah, no, appreciate the quiet while you can.
100%.
Like, we'd have a moment during Shabbat services and you'd just like be quiet just for a minute, and it was just not so nice for it to be just sit there and it'd be quiet. Oh, I loved it.
And it gives you that kind of opportunity to process it all as well. When you have that quiet time and they sort of say, like, think about what you'd like in this moment. We're just like, they would always say, you know, what we're grateful for. And just kind of get into, you know, try and relive the last week and remember those little moments that can get so, you know, lost in the sauce with how busy you are at camp.
Yeah.
It was a really nice experience, to be honest.
I think with camp as well, there obviously are a lot of traditions that are specific to camp. You know, like there's colour war and Olympics and songs and everything that are camp specific. But I also think there's a lot of like Judaism specific traditions and foods and things like that,
For sure.
that we'll have for the first time. So is there any sort of like, were there any sort of foods that you really loved, or any Jewish traditions that you really loved from your experience at camp?
I feel like this is going to be a popular answer to anyone that's potentially been to a Jewish camp and is listening, but the bread, the challah bread, it's so good.
Yeah.
And we would have every Friday, like yourselves, we'd have our Friday night dinners, and that consisted of, and I've spoke to a few other people that kind of went to, you know, traditional camps, but they observed the Jewish faith, and they would also have Friday night dinners, and it's like fried chicken, potatoes on the side, and like green beans. When I tell you, I don't know what they put on these potatoes and green beans.
They are the
I think
best.
It was just garlic, if I'm honest, but it was the best garlic
Flavour.
I've ever tasted.
Yeah.
And this like bread with the butter and the honey, it was gorgeous. We had like every week we would have this pre-sliced challah that was on the table, and you would have like a loaf of it for your table. But then one of my friends who grew up there, he got his, I think he brought some challah bread with him to camp, and it was from like this really good Jewish bakery in New York.
Love.
And he gave me a piece of it, and I was like, oh my
Heaven.
gosh, that is the best bread I've ever tasted.
Yeah.
It looks like a little cloud, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We always
It's
call it
like
cloud
braided.
bread.
I remember at my first camp, they had like a cooking period, and for one of them, like they made challah bread, and we were like braiding the bread and stuff, and they made like a sweet one, and they put chocolate chips in and stuff, and then we had it that night at Shabbat dinner, and I was like, oh my god, this is like so cute. But yeah, genuinely, as you said, there is something in those potatoes. I think it's because you're at camp and a lot of the food is just like sort of plainish, because like it's like pizzas and pastas and things like that, which is great.
It's food for kids, realistically.
Yeah, it's for the kids. But then when you get flavouring on a Friday and you get potatoes and you get good vegetables, I love. And also, like, we'd have little courses, so you'd start off with like your bread, but then you'd have soup, and then you'd have like knishes, and like then you'd have your main after. So we would have like the soup, the matzo ball soup, minus the matzo balls because I'm gluten free, so I can't eat them. But like even having that soup was just like, oh my god, like this is so nice and warming, and it just weirdly took me back home because it's like nice, warm, homely food. So I loved the soup because it was nice vegetables and chicken. But we also had grape juice. I don't know if you guys had grape juice. So like to start off the meal, we'd all have a little, like, it looked like a shot glass of grape juice, and like they'd say the prayers, and then you'd have like your grape juice, and even that was like, oh my god, love.
I've heard about that, to be fair, before.
Yeah.
Because we would, prior to the meal, we would walk into the dining hall and a certain song would be playing, and we would all have to sing along to it.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the song's called. I could probably sing it for you, but I'm not gonna. And then we would have to stand there, obviously, and do our prayer prior to sitting down. But then they would also cut the challah in the middle of the dining hall, and they would say that you would usually have like a bit of challah and then like a drink of wine.
Yeah.
So I think the grape juice was to
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to give kids wine.
No, of course.
But I think it's so risky as well, because all these kids are wearing blue and white, and if they get grape juice all down them, then that's a stain. And talking about that, I did spill ketchup all down my t-shirt once during Shabbat dinner, and it was so embarrassing. And I'll never recover from that. I'm just putting that in there because I'm still scarred. But it's fine. I literally looked like one of the children. It was so bad.
Counselor or camper edition.
Literally.
You also, I remember you told me that you needed to take like particular clothes with you. Obviously, I say that on Fridays we would in the evening wear our specific, it was our white traditional t-shirts. So it had
Yeah.
like the camp logo on. It was just plain white pretty much apart from the logo. And everyone would wear the same thing. Did you, because I remember you mentioning that you had to take like a blue dress with you and things like that.
Yeah.
How did that kind of work?
Yeah, so on Friday nights, for like Friday night service, we would like dress fancy. So it'd be like fancy Shabbat. So you'd have to wear blue and white. So I'd just wear like a blue and white like dress, or like white bottoms and a blue top or something. But that'd be like fancy. So most people would just wear like dresses and stuff, and like the little girls would get all dressed up, and it was the cutest thing ever. On Saturday, on like the Saturday services, it was casual Shabbat. So you could wear, you still had to wear blue and white, but it was just casual. So you could just wear like sport shorts and a white t-shirt if you really wanted to.
Yeah.
And then you still obviously had to wear blue and white just for the services, which I thought was interesting. And it was different as well, because at my first camp, which was also Jewish, it was just full white, so there was no blue. So, you know,
We didn't have any blue.
yeah. So obviously you think of Jewish camps as being Jewish, but a lot of them are different as well.
Yeah.
So they have different traditions and stuff. So the first one was just all white. But this summer it was blue and white, which was really cute. I liked it.
Ours was, as I say, the white t-shirt, and then we had to wear either black bottoms or khaki.
Yeah.
And that was like the standard.
Yeah.
Obviously, we were saying that we weren't. Well, I feel like we're talking about all these random things that are so like normal to us now,
Yeah.
and it's just, as with most things at camp, you know, you become so quickly accustomed to what's going on around you, and then you come home and you talk about this like service or this prayer that you would say every day that's just the normal, and everyone looks
It's
at you
so
like
normal.
you're crazy.
Yeah, you don't even think twice about it.
Literally, like, as we say, you fit in very quickly to camp and camp life. But us kind of, you know, not being Jewish and going to Jewish camps in one way or another, were there any times that you kind of felt like an outsider within that space? Or, you know, did you feel just included and as normal, not sharing that same religious background as you know, the campers and some of the counselors around you?
I like genuinely never once felt like an outsider. I think a lot of the international staff weren't Jewish either, but it was never like made into a big thing or anything. Like never once did I feel like, oh, like I don't fit in here, or like this is something I'm not included with. Like I had a great experience with my campers as well, as like they want to teach you these things. So there's a lot of things and I'll be like, I don't know what this is, and they're like, they'll break it down for you, I think, which is great. So genuinely, like from the bottom of my heart, not once did I feel like left out or not included in something just because I wasn't Jewish as well, which I think is fantastic. And I think would be the case with all of the Jewish camps that we work with as well. So I definitely wouldn't like let that put you off at all about going to a Jewish camp.
No, for sure. If anything, I felt more included with it.
Yeah.
Because as you say, I think the majority of the campers, like a very high majority of the campers at my camp were Jewish. A fair amount of the staff were as well. You know, senior staff, quite a lot of them were Jewish, and then most of the counsellors that had grown up as campers there, obviously were then Jewish still.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, everyone just wants everybody to be included. Nobody wants to. As you say, it's usually the international staff, and like there always is very big precedent on making sure that international staff feel included and a part of the camp family, because you know you're a long way from home. You might not understand what's going on initially,
Yeah.
so it was always very much provided, you know, as a learning experience, not a this is something that we do, like you don't do it but you're gonna do. It was never, you know, it was never like shoved in your face. It was always very much a, if you would like to be involved, you can do. If you don't, that's also fine. Just be respectful, which was a really nice way to kind of have it. I think something that I did as well with being with the older group of girls, when we would have services on a Friday, there was loads of different aspects to services, but the older age groups would lead it. They would take turns leading it.
Yeah.
They would go up on stage and sit on the benches, and we had this like service booklet that had different readings and different prayers and just different like aspects within it, and you would assign the campers to read those out. But then as counsellors of that age group as well, we went up with them and I've been up there twice now in my 2 years to do it. Both times I have been given God Bless America as my contribution, which I just find the funniest thing ever, being an international counsellor, but I love it. I will sing that song proudly, because it has been, you know, the end of it is like my home, sweet home, and, you know, it has been my home for the last 3 summers,
Yeah.
so I'm happy to sing that.
Yeah.
I love it. But in that sense, you know, yeah, it's getting the campers really included in it to get them to, you know, enjoy and feel like they're really a part of that experience, but also the counsellors in that respect.
Yeah, it was similar at my camp. Like each week it would be a different like age group that would like lead the services. So
Yeah.
it'd start off with like the oldest, and then each week it'd make its way down, and then like when the youngest kids did it, it was just the cutest thing in the world, like genuinely the cutest thing. But like, just to think a little bit about even the services themselves, I think genuinely from my perspective, it was just a great way to bond with your campers as well.
100%.
Like what we would do is for every song, they would stand in a big circle and we'd all link arms and we'd just sway for the whole song. And like, I remember for me, one of the moments at the start of the summer, like obviously I'm trying to bond with my new campers, and I was just like facing one of my campers opposite the circle, and we were just pulling stupid faces and we were just like mewing at each other, you know, when you like mew.
My God.
And like, it seems like the most stupid thing, but like it's a memory that I remember from services, and it's like little things like that just, it brings the whole camp together and it brings your age group together, and I just think it's a really lovely thing.
We even, at the services, they would have like a bit in the middle, which was the sermon part of the services, and it would be usually senior staff, but they also, with the eldest boys and the eldest girls, they would get a couple of them to come up at points in the summer as well to provide a sermon of, you know, how they've grown up at camp and how that's had an impact on their lives and why they think camp is so important.
Yeah.
Kind of, you know, they're speaking to everyone in that sense and sharing their experiences, but they were really, you know, speaking to the younger campers, to really have them, you know, buy into it and get excited for what's to come, because, as we always say, you know, camp is like life-changing.
Yeah.
But, you know, these sermons, when I guess senior staff specifically would go up and speak, and they would talk about how they'd been working at camp for years, and this year we had 2 of our international senior staff go up and do it, and I'm sat there like with a tear in my eye.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're talking about how camp has had such an impact and how much it's changed them for the better, how they get to see these kids grow up, and it really was a kind of bonding experience and just a time where you could really be grateful for what's going on around you.
Yeah.
And, you know, I personally, like, that is such a big memory of my camp experience, like getting to listen to other people's experiences. I don't think I would change it, to be honest. I love it. Like, I really enjoyed that aspect of camp for sure.
No, absolutely, me too. Like, it just makes it so much more special, and it's just so nice to just keep learning about different things and get involved and feel like you're included, and I just, like, it opens a whole new world.
Literally.
And I genuinely love it. Like, if anyone is listening that is thinking whether they want to go to a religious camp, it doesn't have to be Jewish, it could be a Christian camp or whatever, but, like, definitely just give it a go. Like, don't write it off immediately. I know a lot of people will just be like, oh, I don't want to do that, and just write it off. But, like, genuinely, it could be a life-changing experience, and you'll learn so much about yourself, you'll learn so much about other people and other cultures and stuff, and I think, like, it's genuinely just amazing. Like, I would honestly recommend it to anyone.
For sure. I think when I was applying back years and years ago, you know, and that bit in the application where it says, would you like to go to a religious camp, I'm pretty sure that I put no. I think for myself, a bit of a closed-minded kind of decision.
I did the same thing.
And it was genuinely, it wasn't for any reason other than I wasn't religious, so I didn't think that I would be able to kind of add any value to that.
I think there's preconceived notions as well.
Yeah.
With that it's what's going to happen at a religious camp, whether it's going to be super religious and pushy and just like, you need to do this, this and this. And exactly. I even myself said no. And I ended up going to a Jewish camp that first summer, and I was like, I loved it so much. And
for sure,
I'm so glad that I did end up going to a Jewish camp, because you just have these preconceived notions, and you just don't know what it's going to be like. So hopefully in this episode we've broken it down a little bit, but you know,
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, if you're, as you said, if you're on the fence, if you're not too sure, my biggest advice is always to be open-minded, because you never want to close a door that you don't know what's behind it.
Oh, I love that.
I literally that just rolled off the tongue.
That's amazing.
Oh, I need to get that one written down. But you never want to do that and take these opportunities away from yourself before you've even had a chance to realize what they are.
Yeah.
So, say yes to everything that you kind of can for now. If down the line you have an interview with a camp and you think, you know what, that might not be up my street.
Yeah.
Fine, fair play. But I had my interview and I asked questions. I said, I think like this is a Jewish camp. What does that mean? And they explained it. And I said, that's not like what I thought it was going to be. As I said, as you just said, I thought it was going to be, pushed on me at all times, and it was going to really dictate my experience in a way. If anything, it's made my experience so much better, and I wouldn't change it. I would never, I wouldn't choose a non-Jewish camp now, having had this experience.
Me too.
Because it just you get that family atmosphere from camp, but this brought such another level to that, and I think it did for you as well.
No, I wholeheartedly agree. Yeah.
So if you have any questions at all about religious camps, about Jewish camps specifically, as you have heard for the last however long that we've been speaking, myself and Caitlin both did go to a Jewish camp, so we have plenty of experience in that area. And just ask people, like people that you may know that have done camp before. If you get onto one of the community pages and you see that people have been to that camp, ask the returners what that means and how that changes your experience or adds to it.
Or even come and speak to us at a camp fair or an event or anything. Just come up. I've had people in the past come up and want to know what it's like to work at a Jewish camp, and we can just chat through it, because there'll be a lot of thoughts and there'll be a lot of feelings, and we can just chat. It's great. Never close off those doors before you really understand it. Exactly.
But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. Hopefully we've enlightened a few people into what those Jewish camps really are about, and what they mean, and how your summer experience is going to be there. But yeah, if anybody, as I said, this is quite a commonly asked question, sometimes a misconception about camp as well. So if anybody does have any further questions, whether it's about this or about anything to do with camp really, we have loads of experience in this office and we love to chat about it.
Absolutely.
So definitely ask us those questions and we can make another episode about it. Or if you want to be on a podcast and talk about your experiences, we would love to have you as well.
Yeah.
So get in touch. But for now, we will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.